what if the real breakthrough is freeing your high performers from low value work? Now, in this episode, we're going to uncover how smart outsourcing can act as a growth lever, freeing your teams to focus on what really moves the needle in your business.
Welcome to Fortify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Today's guest is Brad Stevens, a trailblazer in the outsourcing and business growth space. He's the founder and CEO of Outsource Access. Now, he has helped countless entrepreneurs and franchise leaders streamline their operations, reduce costs, and scale efficiently by tapping into the global talent. Now, he's got years of experience in building and scaling companies. Brad brings these powerful insights. Thank you, Brad, for joining us on Fortify Live.
Super excited to be here, sir. Thank you for the time.
Well, let's start out with, how'd you get into this business? Like, share with our listeners, and we're live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other places, but share with our listeners a little bit about how did you get into this business and how have you been able to grow when there's so many other, I'm going to call posers, everybody, like we're both EO members, and there's so many companies in EO that are jumping on the outsourcing bandwagon, but they are still making the mistakes that you've already solved. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this.
Yeah, every entrepreneur has kind of got their interesting path, and never knew I'd be in a place where I would have a business with, 500 people on the other side of the planet. You never know where these entrepreneurial journeys will end up taking you. But yeah, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, here where I'm at, currently, and grew up in an entrepreneurial family and kind of knew I was going to maybe take that path, and so that's what I've done the last 25 years and built companies in different industries. And to grow my last business, actually, we manufactured and distributed teeth whitening products of all things in about 18 different countries. We sold to the dental industry, the beauty industry, and one day before we had a mess happen with one of our products. We had a really successful product of ours, and the next batch that we ordered from our manufacturer out of Taiwan, they changed a component and basically caused this massive failure when we shipped it to all of our customers. And that created a kind of a forcing function for me. I'd heard about the whole offshoring, outsourcing world, but at that point, I had to make dollars stretch. And so really kind of dug in. Everybody read, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, 20 years ago, and heard about this whole world and how it works. And so I had to become a student of it fast to make dollars stretch really as a necessity for my business. And that's when I began my journey initially, is understanding, Elance and Odesk were the platforms back then. Where do you find people? What are they capable of? Obviously very cost effective, but it's learning how the whole ecosystem works. And so it helped me save my business kind of at the time. And I wanted to end up bringing that experience to other small to medium businesses. It was game changing. And most small to medium business, when they think of outsourcing and offshoring, they think of call centers and, in other countries, they don't think of it as integrated people that can work side by side inside their business. So ended up selling that business, and it was actually my EO forum that kept encouraging me to go down that path. And so I did a lot of speaking and educating, spoke for 80 or 90 EO chapters and EO and YPO, and then decided to go ahead and launch my own, operation. And so, yeah, 2019, put our shingle up for Outsource Access, and it's our 6th year this past year celebrating. And we grew to 500 employees in about 4.5 years, servicing 85 different industries with a very specific model to really make this a sustainable, successful experience for small to medium businesses, overcoming the typical failure points that they've experienced when it comes to exploring offshore and virtual assistants and so forth.
So we've got listeners right now that are entrepreneurs, franchisees, franchisors, other experts and speakers and solopreneurs in a lot of different industries, B2B, B2C. Now, for my business, I run a digital marketing agency, and, I've spent over $1 million on Upwork. So I've used a lot of contractors, literally over $1 million. And I've got some good contractors and bad contractors. And when I joined some of the EO conferences, I've been an EO member now for like 15, 20 years. But when I would go to the recent conferences, there's always these booths and these people. And I would say, okay, we do a Zoom call with the vendor, and he's like, look, we're different than everybody else. The people work directly for us. We train them. We vet them. We make sure that they know your bit. So I get this big sales pitch, right? So high expectations. Yeah. Then I pay a minimum of $2,000, let's say, for 3 months or 6 months, whatever the contract was. And I'm expecting to have this person who's supposed to be able to speak English, who's supposed to be able to execute on, I wouldn't call low level tasks, but they should be able to do the tasks that, social media posting, reviewing, outreach, whatever we contract. So I was trying to get 3 employees, one for administration, one for sales, and one for social media. And we went through 4 different vendors, and, I always have to ask myself, Brad, who's at the scene of the crime? Was it me? Did I not set clear expectations?
Sure.
Or was it the vendor? But we went through like 4 vendors. And then you and I jumped on a call. We were talking. I'm like, you know what? We need to get you on Fortify Live to share with our listeners the do's and don'ts and the mistakes that most people make. So now that you've grown so fast, share with our listeners who may be on the fence. They want to outsource, but they're not even sure where to go.
Al, thanks for sharing. And look, I completely understand. And, as you know, as a former marketing, in the agency space, it's kind of the same thing. You kind of fall into that same commoditized bucket of, another $5,000 retainer in 6 months, and I'm not going to get results, and you're going to be different than every other marketing agency, right? And you've got to kind of differentiate, what you do. And so, yeah, and there are some great other, firms that are out there. But in my journey around it, and there's they do a lot of those types of elements in terms of, training and onboarding. But, one of the things I found, and actually because of EO, is from a culture standpoint and creating an organization that attracted the right kind of talent that were committed and were going to grow and develop, with us. They weren't just coming to get another paycheck, another job. There are companies that hire people as employees, but they don't really take care of their people at a deep level. And the other thing is they don't fully manage those individuals, because as you talked about, there's several different models. There's the model where you can go on a job board and just go hire someone directly like you would here in the US, and you just work with them directly and pay them via PayPal. There's firms that'll help you source and find people and actually help employ them, but then they're hands off after that. They're not managing them. You're kind of left in the seat to sort of manage. And then the path we took was kind of a fully managed approach. So yes, we did incorporate. We do hire everybody as full-time employees. The benefit of that is you do attract the right kind of people that want to pursue this as a career path. But then it's how you treat them and support them as a part of the journey with your company. I mean, we have our own magazine that we print. The only company I think in the Philippines that we dedicated nothing to our employees, that we print and distribute to all the universities. We have our own podcast celebrating our employees. We're aligned to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that I learned because I got a chance to speak at the UN headquarters. And so we let our staff choose areas that they want to give back and invest back in the local, community engagement. But we truly take care of them and support them in their journey and their path. And we sit down day one and say, hey, what career path do you want to take with us? Do you just want to kind of be a direct VA and staff? Do you want to go into management? We have 8 leadership development growth programs. So the whole model is about really helping them grow and develop. And then I probably spend 10 to 12 hours a month doing personal welcome messages to our frontline staff. And somebody in the Philippines has never had that before in their life. They get a message from the CEO. They think it's, a joke. They don't realize it's actually me. Like, no, tell me about your family, why we were involved in this, and want to, encourage your path ahead. So it's a culture element. I mean, you all know the old phrase, it's cliche, culture eats strategy for lunch, but that has been a big element that's helped us attract and retain the right kind of talent. And then we fully manage them, right, as well. So that's the other challenge that other companies have had is once you help people figure out their path, and they claim to help you, but a lot of times it's like, here's your talent, good luck. But we found a lot of small to medium business owners, to your question earlier, they don't know where to begin the journey. So we help them unpack their constraint points. And we have this 2-question exercise we do to really help get clarity on where their challenges are in the business, then provide the right resources to integrate. Then we have a 90-day deep integration process. And then they're being fully managed by my team with team leaders, account managers, and strategists, as well as being managed by our clients' teams ongoing, so that it's a co-managed experience in terms of that support, so that you're getting, not left on an island on how to manage and work with the resources.
So, I said it earlier in the beginning, we're live right now in a bunch of places, and this audio from this becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So if you're listening, you can check out Brad Stevens, the founder and CEO of Outsource Access, just like it sounds, outsourceaccess.com. So check him out online. Obviously do your own due diligence. This is for information, educational purposes only, but I do endorse companies and have people that I believe in, and I do believe that, he's done it. Plus, I've seen all the testimonials from the other people that I know that are using your services. So I'm next in line to do that. So I'm a lead, but that'll be the second conversation. So back to the conversation for the show. So what types of things do you think work best for outsourcing? So, businesses have the 4 areas of expertise, right? They have financial, they have operations, they have sales and marketing, and then the customer experience. So where do you feel a business should start? Now, obviously it's going to be different for we know everybody. You have to adapt. Don't adopt. You have to diagnose before you prescribe. But where do you feel is a really easy place to get a home run to let your high performers have their time back?
Yeah, and that's why we do that 2-question, exercise. And I know it's, it's kind of cliche to say, well, it depends on each situation. Now we have pre-configured roles. So a lot of times when clients come to us, some of them already have identified, a particular project or need that they have. And so they're coming in specific and saying, hey, we need someone that can plug in, that can perform this function. Sales and marketing support, right? Accounting and bookkeeping, unique operational functions. Because there's certain roles that are predetermined that, regardless of what business, when it's doing graphic design or is doing accounting and bookkeeping, it's having people that are pre-trained in particular roles and functions. But then there's things that are unique to that business, that are unique operational infrastructure elements. We got a big national client we're working right now that had this billing reconciliation challenge that was very, very unique, where they had to reconcile certain elements in the business. And so we actually helped define and develop the entire workflow and training to kind of get that project executed, because they didn't have it fully kind of developed. So we kind of collaborated and worked with them in that process. But helping people figure out where to begin the journey and go into that 2-question. And I tell you, Ford, I've done it with startups we have a $300 million pharmacy group that we work with. Same exact thing. And the CEOs always say, are you sure that's simple? I'm like, yeah. So all these consultants come in with 400 questions. You only got 2? I'm like, yep. Just send these 2 questions to your people. What are you doing that you don't feel is the best use of your time? And how many hours per month are you spending on it, right? And that second part of that is really important, because a lot of people will say, well, yeah, I'm not going to put down, I don't spend that much time on it. No, it's amazing. You go through that journey, and you got to give your staff psychological safety to truly say things that they don't feel is the best use of their capabilities, but then put a pencil to it and how many hours per month are you spending on it? And then the second question is, what are the things on the radar? What are the things on the radar that you think that we should be doing in our business that we aren't due to time, money, or knowledge constraints? And I tell them, literally take those 2 simple questions, copy and paste them, email them to your managers, say, hey, we're going to meet in a week, and I want you to brain dump every single answer that you've got there. And it is unreal how many times that comes back. I've done this with thousands of companies at this point, and they unload. And the CEO's like, John, you've been with me for 8 years, and you came back with 42 items on this list. Well, you never really asked me this way.
Right.
And so what it does is it helps unpack the key constraints, which is things that are burdening people that have better value to add to the organization. And then the things that you're not getting to in the business, right? Like getting certain, we had that one pharmacy client of ours that they had one project. They're like, hey, the director of operations said, if I could get this one report in my inbox every day that had this information, I could have a huge impact on our business. We did it. We helped them make it happen. $50,000 impact on their business next quarter by having that second question answered. What do you think we should be doing if we had the time and resources? And so that creates a whole runway. And then from that, we prioritize and say, okay, which of these could have the highest impact? And some of them may be, hey, I got my VP of sales. I no longer want him managing the CRM and doing LinkedIn outreach and automation. Let's get somebody taking that off his plate so he can have more FaceTime and conversations closing deals and take that 22 hours a month of administrative work that's going to have an impact. Or, hey, accounting and bookkeeping, we have a big hotel chain we're working with that brought on 5 people now doing all their accounting and bookkeeping. That was bogging down their entire property management team. So that was the first thing that made sense. So each business, it can either be top line related. I mean, everybody loves top line, right? We all want to drive top line revenue. So that time's an opportunity. But sometimes it's, efficiency and operation elements that can free up people that then translates into more top line opportunity.
Well, I know for me, I've with the inventive AI in the last 5 years, even though, officially 2.5 years ago, but I've been using and outsourcing, like I said, on Upwork and some Odesk in the past. Now I just use Upwork for a few things. And I've got some people that we've worked with for a long, long time that are kind of like our employees. I mean, they're on a retainer every week. We pay them. So hypothetically for this recording, no, they're contractors. We do not set their hours. It's an outsourced contractor. They're not employees. I'm not paying payroll tax. Okay, so just to be clear, for anybody who might be listening or any of our AI devices that are listening. But I know one of the things that made you guys different too is in the process of identifying the roles that you're looking for, you help those organizations define what those roles are. So you're not just saying, tell me what you want and you build it. Like for me, I'm a keynote speaker. So I open the franchise conferences, associations and events. And, I'll go to the client and I'll ask them what their outcome is. But as soon as the client says, well, we want this agenda and you want this, I'm like, if you're asking the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter. Look, I'll hit the target. Just let me know what the targets are, and I'll make sure that we do it. So I know it's pretty much similar and the same with outsourcing, but you guys also then help create the systems so that if the person who they first pick isn't right, it's easy to replace them with someone else.
Certainly. I mean, Well, it all starts in the beginning process because ideally, I mean, I'm a big, measure 10 times, cut once kind of person. And so, back to our hiring process and our filtering, I mean, we get through, when people look at profiles, when we send them over, they're like, geez, I don't even do that with my W-2 people here in the US. We do IQ testing, emotional intelligence testing. We use a tool called Predictive Index, people may be familiar with. It tells you all the things you don't get in interviews and resumes. A very extensive kind of profile. And then we hard interview, candidates. We're going through a couple thousand per month to really make sure that this is a career path that they're wanting to follow and be a part of our journey and really, our clients' journeys to help them be, successful. So by doing that, it does really reduce tremendously our turnover because we're really trying to find the right candidates that when we present those to individuals, we've vetted them pretty extensively. But, human beings never cease to amaze me. There's always, occasional times. Right. And it may be a life event that happened to someone or otherwise. But yes, from the very beginning, as a part of the journey is first, we're really kind of a consulting advisory to figure out the constraints and challenges that they're navigating, identify what roles we want to start with, identify the individuals, help them interview the candidates. And then once they make that selection, then we have a very granular integration process that we have weekly meetings with our team leader, our account manager, the staff that's performing the work and their team. And then weekly touch bases every single week up to 90 days, right? Because we want to make sure we are putting all the hands together. But to your question, a key thing we do is we create a playbook. So from day one, we create a very detailed documented playbook of every single thing that we are doing for that client, all the processes, all the protocols. And Ford, honestly, it's something that I just can't imagine not doing being in this industry, but a lot of our competitors don't think do so because our clients have told us, Brad, look, hey, we love our staff. I said, but you've created a 90-page playbook of all our processes for our business that alone is worth like 15 or 20 grand. But that's a part of just what we do in our organization. So we create that playbook for a couple of reasons. And the client owns it from the very beginning. We ever part ways and we don't do long-term, we ask for 90 days, then we're just doing a 30-day notice. Because I believe if you perform, people are going to stay with you. I hate being locked into these long-term contracts. Yeah. But that playbook is it allows them to now get processes documented in their organization that haven't been documented before. Right? Because how many businesses have had that person walk out the door with that institutional knowledge? And so by gauging with us, because we require things to kind of get documented and processed, now they're getting those things done. And then secondly, if we do need to replace someone, we've got every single thing documented. And we're big on using like Loom and screencasting. So, whether it's, hey, here's how you go into the general ledger and execute XYZ, or we had a big client of ours that had a bunch of dormant leads in their CRM. And they sold rugs made in India. They sold them through interior designers in the United States. And they had 3,000 dormant leads of interior designers that hadn't bought in years. And so they ended up hiring up to 4 of our staff, do nothing but dive into their dormant leads, go do outreach and engagement. We generated $500,000 in revenue for them in 6 months from dormant leads. But we needed to work with their sales reps on the process with Salesforce.com. And so we used Loom to do the screencast recordings on the process so that we could then bring new people in and train them on it. And if we needed to replace someone, we have the entire process documented. And then we take on the burden of recruiting that replacement and pre-training them if someone ends up needing to part ways, and they have to give us a 30-day notice if for some reason we needed to transition. So yeah, creating that redundancy. And that was my mission. Our tagline is redefine how you scale. And so I wanted to make Outsource Access be a way that small to medium business and franchise, as you mentioned, we ended up working with a bunch of franchises. They came to us, some franchisees, and all of a sudden now we're working with a bunch of national brands in food and non-food in the franchise space at the franchisor or franchisee, but truly make it a sustainable, reliable experience so that they can see how somebody from another country can work side by side, integrated with their existing staff, as a win-win, kind of going forward.
Awesome. Well, on that note, let's hear a word from the sponsor that makes Fortify possible.
Can't cut through the online chaos? This episode is powered by Ignite Visibility, the nation's expert in ROI-driven digital marketing. We help over 90 leading franchise brands and 2,500 locations outrank competitors and convert more customers. Ready to stand out and grow? Claim your free digital marketing audit at ignitevisibility.com. Ignite your growth.
All right, we're back. So, Brad, from your perspective, what are the top challenges that entrepreneurs face when it comes to their growth and operations? Because they don't know what they don't know. I mean, we talked about the wheel of excellence from operations, accounting, marketing, sales, and the customer experience. And I've always told people there's really only 4 ways to grow a business, right? Get more high-value customers, not more customers, more high-value clients and customers. increase the average transaction by adding more value. So how do you add more value? Number 3, how do you increase the frequency or referrals? So how do you get more people to refer you or to come back, depending on the model, which in your case, it's a subscription model or a continuity model. And then the 4th one is improve operations. And so for me, I've always struggled with that, improving the operational side. I've thrown money at it, but I haven't had a good partner like you that can come in and actually look at what our business is to help decide. So when you look at your clients, the reason I'm bringing this up is I know when someone hires me, let's say leadership, they say they want leadership, but maybe it's culture, leadership, management, team building, communication, change. Like there's so many, what they think the problem is isn't necessarily what the problem is. Have you seen that when you work with your prospects and clients?
Oh, certainly. And I know I keep going back to this 2-question exercise thing, and I'll share with everybody. We have a free template we can send if you ever want to kind of explore it in your own organization.
Yeah, go ahead and give the link. I mean, can they get it on your site at Outsource Access?
Yeah, we'll send. We've got and I do this when I was speaking. We got an email address we set up called tools, TOOLS, tools@outsourceaccess.com. And if you just put Fortify in the subject line, not to write a note or anything of that nature, just shoot it over. And as you can imagine, have a VA that manages that inbox, and we'll shoot you a whole bunch of tools and resources. And we'll send you an exact Google template document and with an instructional video of how you can do this 2-question exercise within your organization, because it's so simple, but unpacked a lot of those challenges. Some applause there.
We got our own sound effects. So I want to make sure everybody heard it. It's tools@outsourceaccess.com. All right. So make sure you email it, put Fortify in the subject line, or just put tools. They'll get it. They'll understand. And then that way they'll send the information back to you for the bonuses. That's great. I have things I do when I'm on podcasts. So I think that's great. And I like, people, I'm going to shift gears for just 2 seconds. If you're taking the time to be a guest on a podcast, you need to do something of giving them a lead magnet. Now, I know it's not the topic of today's conversation, but we're all here for marketing, right? We're doing this. We're producing content. This content gets repurposed on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and TikTok and a few other places. And it gets transcribed, becomes a blog. It goes on YouTube, comes shorts. And, you should always have a lead magnet to get new people on your list. So I'm getting exposed to Brad's list because when we post this, he's going to say, hey, I was just a featured guest on this. So it's going to go to his customers. And then when I post, hey, I just had this guest, Brad Stevens, it's going to my list. So as a business owner, you need to ask yourself, 1, how do you increase visibility? And 2, make sure you add something of value. So that was a quick little brain fart detour that we took.
Hey.
So tools,
I believe it.
Tools@outsourceaccess.com. Okay, so they're going to get those templates, and that's going to really help them understand where to start to have that conversation. I really like that it's simple. I mean, keeping it simple is way better. I always say start simple, get complicated later.
Well, the interesting byproduct of it is the culture lift. I had no idea how this 2-question exercise would impact businesses, but by inviting employees to share, right, where their constraints are and where they don't feel their time is best being used and where they think the business could be doing things that it's not doing, it creates this culture lift and it creates a sense of voice, right? I mean, anybody here that runs scaling up or EOS and so forth, a key element to that is letting your employees be a part of unpacking. And when they can own what the challenges are, right, then that's when things can really, catch scale and drive forward. And so in that template that we share, we kind of have an instructional video, and then we've done over 4 million hours of work for clients in 85 different industries in every function: marketing, operations, sales, customer service. And so one of the tabs in there, we've got over 700 tasks pulled right from the work that we've done, organized by all the internal business functions, operations, marketing, and sales. Wow. That you can scan through. And so it's a great primer from people who are beginning this 2-question exercise. Watch the short little instruction video, and then scan through those tasks. And people are blown away, like, oh, they can do that, and they can do that. And it may not be exactly from their business, but it triggers their ideas. And then the final step is to kind of do, the exercise, themselves. And so to get back to your original question is like, people end up do they not know what the real problem is? And by going through that exercise, it unpacks friction and constraints that a lot of times organizations don't see. As they grow, bureaucracy happens and things overlay. I mean, I had this one client that's like, the staff, did this exercise, and I got a chance to do it in person here in Atlanta. I don't get to do very often. And, she's like, yeah, I'm still doing ABC reports, and I spend 5 hours a month doing it. And the CEO's like, you still do ABC reports? Like, yeah, I still do them for the last 2 years. I never look at those. Well, I still do them. Right. So it's these things, and like that's 5 hours of this person, who could, who's a $100,000, employee. So it creates the interesting thing is even if you never even outsource a thing at all, right? Doing this exercise creates a dialogue and conversation to figure out where are their challenges and where does one hand know what the other hand is doing in the organization, to kind of unpack and to really shape up, okay, what are our real problems? And then we, add a column to it to then rank them in terms of, okay, if we could solve this issue, which of these could have the biggest financial impact? And then kind of sort them by that, because that's really what you want to get to, is what's going to have the biggest operational lift. Either we're taking things off so this person can go add more value at an e-commerce firm that we were working with, and their VP of ops was getting sucked into solving like product, complaint orders. Awful use of a $90,000 VP of ops time, right? Get that back. Now she could work side by side with the owner of the company to go close big strategic enterprise type of deals. So that was like what they said, hey, we got to get this off our VP of ops of solving these fire drills of problem orders. Or it's, pure revenue related, like that one client, right? That all these dormant leads, and every business, I'm telling you, that's always a great, low hanging fruit. We got all these leads we jammed into the CRM from CSV files uploaded from this trade show and that conference and Apollo and Zoom info. And they're sitting there, and, the sales reps only want to talk to the hottest ones that are ready to buy, but so many dormant opportunities. That's a great place you can kind of dig in and, re-engage. And lastly, I'll show, to your point, is when it comes to sales and marketing, and to piggyback on what you said about, lead magnets and so forth, is, look, in the days of AI right now, you got to out content your competition, right? And just like what you're doing and I'm doing, and that's a big thing we're doing with a lot of clients with our staff, is helping them produce content at scale. Business owners, and their key, staff have got to be thought leaders in creating content and getting it out there. And what I call is the nurture wheel. When I talk on this, I have a slide. I have the nurture wheel and I have the life and business events wheel. And if you can earn the right to stay on people's nurture wheel with good value content in their LinkedIn feeds, in their email, in their TikTok, there will be a life and business event at some point where you will earn the opportunity for that transaction. And you got to be able to do that at scale, and efficiently. So couldn't agree more.
Well, on that topic of AI, so I always say there's 4 different levels of AI. You start with the large language models like ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, Gemini, Grok, and so forth. And then you have the specialty products that are designed to do one or two things, leveraging social media, cutting up videos, whatever. And there's thousands. You can go to Futurepedia or AI tools and look them up. Both those you can Google everybody, and you'll get to directories. And then the next level is digital assistants. Now, not to be confused with what Brad's offering with a real person, but it's where you've created custom GPTs, Perplexity spaces, Claude projects, which are designed to be trained to do a specific task. And then, of course, you have workflow automations with Make.com and Zapier and N8N. And so if you're confused by any of the things I said in the last 30 seconds, go to profitrichresults.com/AI-training. So it's my website. It's on the screen if you're looking here. It's profitrecsults.com/AI-training. That'll get you opted into a masterclass on AI, because the biggest thing I'm finding is in AI right now is people come from 2 different camps. They're either it's completely confused and overwhelmed. They've used ChatGPT. They're still treating it like Google. So they're getting garbage in, garbage out, and they don't see the real use of it. Or they're dangerously overconfident, thinking they've got it figured out. I can't tell you how many times I've jumped on a Zoom call with someone, and I just casually, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your expertise level? Oh, I'm a 9 or 10. And I'm like, well, let's share your screen. And so they share the screen. One, they sometimes don't have an account, or they have an account, they haven't set their default settings. And most importantly, they haven't set their privacy settings. So everything they're putting into ChatGPT is going up to the ethers. I mean, there's so many, they don't know what they don't know. So they think they're a 9. And so after an hour with me, I'll ask them, now on a scale of 1 to 10, where you at? And they're like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So now I'm at a 1. But I think it's important to remember that anybody with a laptop is calling themselves an AI expert. Certainly as a keynote speaker right now in the space, it's getting flooded. Everybody who can't make it as a regular speaker is now an AI speaker. And we're not talking about giving book reports. We're talking about giving real answers. So shameless plug for me, but back to the conversation of this topic in outsourcing. AI and automation are they're shaping outsourcing. How do you see this impacting not only your business, but business owners in the next few years that are trying to leverage AI, and then they're trying to leverage outsourcing, because it just makes sense, right? COVID sped everything up. I don't even like to use that word on episodes anymore, but it's relevant today. It sped everything up. It made virtual employees and the workflow changed. We would have gotten there anyway. I just think it speeded up by about 5 years. So the question is, long road to a tiny house, Brad. How is AI and automation reshaping outsourcing? Is it affecting you guys? Are you guys using it? Do you use it with your clients? Because then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question about content.
Sure. No, I mean, and you cannot have your head in the sand, where AI is concerned. The old Jim Collins, Stockdale paradox, right? Have a full faith and confidence, going to be successful in the end, but we got to face the brutal facts of where we are. And the facts is that this is changing the game. It's not a short-term tip or trick, right? This is where everything is going. I think we're seeing, we always heard, the phrase random acts of marketing, right? Well, I think there's a lot of random acts of AI that's happening. That recent report that came out that said like 95% of corporate initiatives on AI have, failed per se. But because I think everybody feels like they need to go chase it and do it, but they're not doing it with, real intentionality and structure. So yes, is it going to change the game for businesses and individuals kind of longer term? Yes, but it'll just reshape how we go about doing work, as we've talked about. And so, yes, to answer your question, we absolutely, with our staff, we train them from as soon as ChatGPT came out, train our VA staff, our management staff on ChatGPT, and then Gemini. We're a Google Workspace enterprise organization, so Gemini is a huge one that we use. We actually create custom gems that we have pre-engineered to be expert advisors on our clients' industries and businesses. So when we begin our sales process with clients, we actually put it through a custom gem that we've engineered that we can identify and predict specific roles, right? With ROI by role. There's a beta that we just finished up that we're going to roll out. And then if they've done that 2-question exercise, we actually take those 2 questions that they've outputted, load it in, and it creates an entire set of roles. We had this one big franchise we're working with, gave it to us, and literally 3 different roles, and gave ROI like per task, or at least estimated, ROI. So yes, we first of all train ourselves on it and use it as a tool, particularly as being a business advisor, because that's part of what we want to do with our clients is whether or not they're getting more VAs or not with us, we want to just help advise their path, ahead. As it relates to the technology, side of it, is right now there's a lot of the value add is the AI plus the human, right? And I've plugged for my podcast, How Outsourcing and AI Works for Small to Medium Business, actually right up the alley of your question there, where I interview our clients and we share exact case studies and examples around it. More content, right?
The audience is excited.
Applaud for more content. But yeah, it's our YouTube, How Outsourcing and AI Works for Small to Medium Business, because people want to hear exact examples of how this stuff actually works. And so to that point, I'll share one key example related to that is a lot of what we do is help run and support the software for these businesses, right? So over the years, we've learned about 150 different software applications, right? Whether it's Litify for the personal injury law firm space. So Litify is a big case management software platform that we help run and manage for a lot of clients in that space, to your big ones, like HubSpot and Salesforce, to, platforms for home and commercial services like, House Call Pro, Field Routes. And so a big area I've found that we're helping in is, yes, are there certain elements and certain tasks and businesses that are going to be, that we're doing, they're going to be replaced by AI? Yes. But the next evolution, a lot of it is having our staff understanding how to run and manage the software applications for these businesses and the functions. And it's one of elements. So we got this big turf care company that we work with. They have about 4,000 customers, and they use a software called Field Routes. So Field Routes is this application that helps route all their technicians to go out and spray yards every single day. And they had 3 of their staff that managed the locations who also had to manage inventory, manage chemicals, manage employees, and they had to go in this software and do the routing for all the technicians every single day and try and keep up with all the new AI capabilities and so forth. So they hired one of our staff, Ivan, who had never done this before. Within a month, got him trained up on. And so now our staff from the Philippines is doing all the routing for this entire turf care business, and he's mastering the software at 100%. And so what happens in a lot of the software and businesses, whether it's HubSpot or niche specific,
Zoho or any go high level, it's all the same.
It's getting used at 20 to 25% of capability. Why? Because I think you're being the individuals that are running it, right? Yeah, it's probably less than that in a lot of cases. Is that they pay the monthly fee and they're using 25% of what it can do because they've got a bunch of other things to do and they don't have time to fully maximize its capability and what's possible there. It's like our iPhones, right? I've used about 5% of what this thing's capable of. I use it for phone and texting for the most part, some of the apps, but I still pay $1,500 because of the value that I get. So being able to maximize all of the software in these companies at full utilization, and then the guys in this business that were having to do that plus the routing, now they get to focus on employee development. They get to focus on proper inventory management. They're adding more value, and now we've centralized the routing. And then the AI and all the new features that the software is coming out with that most companies never touch because they're barely using the initial features.
Right.
Now we're fully utilizing all that capability. And then furthermore, a lot of companies, they have turnover. So once they've gotten a staff trained on how to use Go High Level or how to use Service Titan or what have you, they walk out the door when they quit. Now all of a sudden they got to train somebody up brand new, and they lose all that, functionality. So that's a big element we're finding is mastering the software applications and then all the updates and capabilities of it. And then Christine is the other staff they added. I mean, they wanted somebody to be able to call that second question, something they wish they could be doing that they're not doing. It's like, you know what, if we could have somebody call all of our, clients before someone went to spray their yard and say, Ford, you going to be there today? You just want to confirm we're going to come out? Then call them afterwards and say, hey, I just want to say we sprayed your yard today, saw this little brown patch, we're going to need a fungicide, $40 upsell. Our staff in the Philippines has sold $100,000 of additional services in the last 3 months for this turf care company by using the AI capabilities and tools in the software that they weren't even using before because they didn't have time to use it. So it's kind of like this 1 + 1 = 4 experience. If you take a really solid, staff, offshore staff that gets it, understands it, plus the tools, and they maximize their capability, you can get full performance.
So I have two more questions before the last question will be the wrap up. But so when it comes to content, you gave a stat, the recent stat research I've done is that 92% of people are business owners or businesses are using AI now to create content. Unfortunately, 60% of that content is they're copy and pasting straight out of AI. And so it's garbage, it's just garbage. And so they have to keep the human in the loop. So, while both you and I are advocates for AI, we're both advocates to say, look, it's an and, not an or. It's not do you use this or a person. You want to keep the human in the loop, whether it's an outsourced staff or an internal staff. And then the second thing is the cost to acquire leads has gone up in all businesses, not just franchising. So because Google has changed, Google is no longer Google where it shows rankings. The search engines are now AI, and AI are now search engines. So how do you create your content in such a way that your content gets cited in AI tools, which is a whole different way of thinking about content marketing. So for our listeners here, what we're talking about here is instead of SEO, which is search engine optimization, you want to do AEO, which is answer engine optimization. You want to create content that answers the questions of your core people. So one of the things I think, getting a staff member for me is to help. One, we create custom GPTs for all our agency clients that are on retainer because it's the same. We need to be able to have their voice and all their details and compliance if they're in certain industries. But we want to take a look at the top 100 questions that their ideal client has at the different phases of the buying process. So whether it's awareness, they're aware they're a problem, now they start researching, now they're comparing this one to this one, and now they're shopping and buying. So it's coming up with that master list of questions. We use AI to do that too, but we also use surveys with the clients, and we also send emails out to their staff and say, what are the top 50 questions you can answer? Because the more questions you can answer formatted in a way that's valuable, added and formatted and concise, that has your brand voice, not just content for content. So both of us are saying the same thing. Don't just use AI and don't just use even if you hire outsourcing to produce social media, you need to have it within your compliance of your voice and your angle. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree. It's what I've been preaching very much as well. I think that, the know, like, and trust element is more critical than ever now, with AI producing so much at scale. And I think a lot of decision makers in business and business owners are, it's always been the best path if you can get someone to engage, from a referral standpoint or to, follow from a thought leadership standpoint. But I think they're leaning into it more than ever because AI is producing so many automated text messages, automated phone calls, automated LinkedIn messages, where I get a neat LinkedIn message. Brad, congratulations on all the 8, awards you've won at Outsource Access. It looks like you've done a great job at growing to 500 people in 4.5 years. Like, I can see that 1,000 miles away, right? That's not personalized kind of engagement, right? And so I think the fatigue is setting in more than ever, that it's just like, I'm just not paying attention to any of it. I'm going to go back to like, who can I trust and connect with to actually make a decision when it comes to a vendor selection. And so I agree. I think now more than ever, it's about using the AI tools to prompt in terms of content and ideas and strategy. I mean, I've got a custom GPT and in Gemini where I've loaded my entire life story into every single assessment I've ever taken, my Enneagram, my predictive index, my culture index. I've been an EO, right? So we've done our lifelines. Right. So I have my EO forum updates for 15 years on life, personal business. Wow. I mean, 700 hours worth that I loaded up for better or worse, right? Maybe a privacy disaster down the road, but, put it in. And I had it analyze everything, and it created, 2 years of weekly content for me, blended between leadership lessons, life lessons, family lessons, kind of across the board. So I was able to, using AI, right, to help identify and create the content, but then, authentically still delivering it, with the human voice. People are doing some of these AI avatars and what have you, and some of them are getting pretty good, I'll have to say. But I think more than ever, the human eye is going to be very keen to be able to tell the difference. And, for those CEOs that are complete introverts and don't feel comfortable being in front of a camera and so forth, it's going to be a challenge long term. I mean, I think this is the path that most are going to have to take. I mean, I always go back to the old Wendy's analogy, right? Remember when Dave Thomas, right, used to be the face of Wendy's, and you didn't buy a Wendy's burger because of the Wendy's brand and because of the yellow and blue colors. It was Dave Thomas, old grandpa, in his blue apron and his white shirt that you could connect and identify with. And so, I think we're seeing the same, right, across the board in business. And that's why you're seeing such growth, I think, in thought leadership and CEOs writing books and coming up with podcasts and then activating their C-suite to do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So using AI to craft the content path, but authentically producing the content, is going to be still key.
Yeah, people ask me, they said, as a keynote speaker, are you afraid that they're not going to have conferences? And I'm like, no. Do you think CDs and I'm dating myself, CDs and streaming music prevented people from doing concerts? I think that we're going to see the pendulum shift as everybody jumps on the AI bandwagon. It's going to be harder to know what's real, what's fake. But if you can have a real person, like if I get a nickel for every automated sales AI dialer that's calling, I mean, hi, how are you today? And then it waits, and then it just gives you this script, and I can say blue onion, and it just says, great to hear that, and it's bull, and it's just not real. And so I know that that's a challenge, and I think we're going to see a shift from back to the personal side. And so, my resistance with one of the companies that I hired was they said, oh, this person speaks English, but they were doing outreach, and I couldn't have them call C-level executives because their communication skills, it's not necessarily the accent. I don't care about the accent. It's just they didn't have the acumen, if that's the right word, to have those C-level communications. Yeah.
And there's different ranges of talent, right? And when it comes to like voice work, and that's why, doing that assessment in the beginning is what type of work are the staff going to be doing? Because, because the Philippines, Americanized, culture, the United States controlled it up until 1947. So a lot of people kind of group all of Southeast Asia together. So there is a whole level difference of both cultural and English speaking. I mean, English is everybody's second language, but there are some that have different degrees of accent. So depending on the nature of work that they're doing, we certainly don't disqualify. We've got this brilliant, absolutely brilliant staff of ours that actually ended up writing some code for a client. It wasn't even a part of his job that has performed phenomenally well, right? But he does have a heavier kind of accent, but we didn't want to overlook him for that because he can still communicate well in written communication, but he does have a little bit of a voice accent. But if you're looking for someone that is going to be doing voice, it is a slimmer audience, right? In the Philippines, it's going to have that level. But like Christine, who I was just talking about with our client, Yardsy, big turf care business. She's picking up the phone and calling, end user residential customers in Southeast United States, North Carolina, South Carolina, that can have different accents. And she's communicating, educating, and directly upselling. And I think part of what's happened is a lot of people associate slight accent with incompetency because a lot of these big firms that have gotten customer service in these other countries, they don't train them well, right? So when we get on the phone with our cable company and they can't answer our questions, they're like, okay, accent equals incompetency, and so therefore I'm going to put them all in that bucket. But if you can show that you're competent and know what you're doing, and so even when our staff do have a slight accent in speaking sometimes, as long as they can demonstrate competency very quickly, that quickly fades away because that's really kind of what they're looking for. And there's a cool tool, CRISP, KRISP, which is actually an accent neutralization tool. So if somebody does have a slight accent and somebody wants it completely pristine, it's actually a tool that we've engaged that we can use to remove any slight accent elements to it.
Well, that's really cool. Well, any closing thoughts you have as we wrap this up today?
Oh, it's a great subject matter that we're covering here. And, hopefully we can just encourage the listeners. I mean, I know you and I are on the content, bandwagon. But I go back to my 2-question exercise. I just think it's a phenomenal,
that's a great,
simple way to just unpack constraints in the organization. And I just keep seeing it over and over again happen with companies of all sizes. I had a woman coming up to me I'm in YPO as well. And she came up to me at an event because I did a TEDx talk on that concept, or an EOX kind of TEDx type talk on it.
Right.
And she came out of nowhere and she said, Brad, I heard you. I went back and did that with my staff. And you're right. It was incredible. And this woman, she's not going to buy VAs. Actually, her husband has us in that industry, but she's like, it's amazing what that did for us. So I encourage everybody to go down that. You can shoot that email, tools@outsourceaccess.com, put Fortify in the subject. We'll be happy to send that your way. And I'd love to get your feedback. Share with us your journey. Happy to provide education and insights on it. And then secondly, look, get on the content creation wagon and build that AI muscle. The tool that Fortify shared there on his website, just start making, even my own staff today, we're very AI forward, but just, you got to keep using that muscle and thinking of ways creatively that you can use it. I mean, last Saturday I helped my kids write a children's book with Gemini with the front cover on it and everything. Yep. Our son calls us the taker longers. He's 6 years old, because we can't get out the door. And so we ended up making a little children's book called The Taker Longers. They created a whole cover for it, an entire 15 chapter book. So all parts of your life, just start building that muscle and you'll find it unpack in ways and surprise yourself.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. And thanks for tuning in to Fortify Live, where we're all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success. Thanks again, Brad.
My pleasure, everybody. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Fortify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.